too. We know in our gut, that's the most important thing.
I think people can tell when you're a phony and you're doing it for your own, you know, or if you're doing it for others. I don't know. Maybe
Yes.
that's it. But I don't want, I just wanted to do this for other people. Out of that, I get blessed. That's enough, you know.
Well, I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. I appreciate the sacrifice that you've had to make day and day and day after day to be in this crazy Vakakta business. So I'm not really cussing if people don't know what Vakakta is, right? Okay, cool.
Vakakta is one of those wonderful, expressive Yiddish words that express Vakakta means, you know, screwed up, crazy. We can all relate. We're still going through a pandemic, which is something we never anticipated and requires all kind of courage.
Yes, it does. And, you know, like stamina, stick-to-itiveness, staying positive, chanting, getting out sage and smudging your house and, you know, putting your furniture in the right place so that evil spirits stay. I don't know what the hell. Geez, how do you get through? We never got a book on how to raise a kid or make it through a pandemic, Ellen.
That's so true. But I think we're surviving and we're celebrating through comedy, so that's all good.
Yes. Ellen Orchid is my guest on Comic Spot today. That's her in the other square. This is me. That's her. Hi, Ellen.
Hi there. I'm coming to you from Manhattan, New York.
Yes,
Beautiful
Manhattan.
sunny day.
What's going on in your neck of the woods today?
Well, it's August 5th, 2021, and we have a beautiful summer day with a nice breeze, not that oppressive humidity that we usually get in August. And I'm still trying to figure out how they can air condition the subway cars, but not the platform. You go from 100 degrees on the platform, sweating your ass off, into a refrigerator when the subway car arrives. So that's always healthy, you know, great for the immune system. Good thing I'm vaccinated, but anyways.
I love when you do comedy, you get me laughing at nothing. Like I just laughed at a punchline that was, but not on the subway. Only Ellen can make me laugh about nothing. You're better than Seinfeld. I'm sorry.
Well, New York is ripe for comedy. You know, living here, it's like that show Survivor. When you survive on an island, we're trying to survive here on Manhattan Island.
Yes.
And, yeah. So we've been doing Zoom comedy shows through
Yes.
Joke Zoom and other comedy shows, and actually been doing a lot of comedy writing during the pandemic. And I'm a psychiatrist by day and a comic by night. So I consider myself a bit of a hybrid, you know, like a Prius.
You can park it anywhere, but it's only going to do you good in certain places.
That's been the case certainly been the case in my life. You know, half gas, half electric shock, or some hybrid like that. Laughing gas and electric shock. But anyway.
Let me read the intro that you sent me. Ellen Orchid, our guest, the world's only psychiatrist / stand-up. And she's the love child of Carol Burnett and Sigmund Freud. So there you go. That's her in a nutshell. Tight material, very zany and off the wall, and I love it. That's so tight.
Thank you. You know, it actually makes sense, because if you're doing something serious by day, like mental health work, and let's be clear, there's nothing funny about mental illness, and I don't make fun of anybody in mental patients, you know, in my act. That's not at all what I do. But and then at night, you know, having an outlet like this to laugh and enjoy vent about the frustrations of life through stand-up has been a very good balance for me.
Yes.
And for anybody, I think.
Now, I have a psychiatrist at the VA hospital in Portland, Oregon, And I worked her into my act, and it's absolutely true. Every time I told her I had a symptom, she said she had that. So like, do you ever like identify with what someone's saying and tell them that you have it too? Because at some point it was disconcerting to me.
Yeah, and that could go two ways. I mean, on one hand, you might enjoy the empathy, which means to feel with someone that she has it too. On the other hand, I think we often want our therapist, and I have a therapist too, to be a rock who doesn't have these things, someone that we can be uncertain with, and they're steady. So
Yeah.
maybe you don't want a therapist that has these things. How did you feel about it? And you knew that was coming.
I felt like, why am I going to her? She's as messed up as I am.
That's right. That's why you ixnay on the empathy pay or whatever. I don't really, I try not to share my stuff because I want to be a blank screen that the patient can be themselves with. Supportive, listening, empathic in tone and manner, but not like exactly what you said. I don't think the patient benefits if we seem unsettled or have symptoms within ourselves.
I have a daughter that hasn't spoke to me in 8 years, and she had that too. So I said, well, then how do you cope with it? And she goes, I don't know. Now I'm really wondering why I'm going to her.
You can always change, make a switch.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was that. And this is now, and this is Ellen Orchid's time, not mine, to use her for free advice. But so, Ellen, I assume you were born and raised. Am I making a fair assumption?
I was definitely born. That is a definite conclusion. And I was raised rather than lowered by my wonderful parents. I was lucky. And believe me, I don't take it for granted. I had wonderful parents. Adelaide and Walter Weinberg raised me in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, which is about a mile north of Coney Island, for you people looking at a map. And I had a wonderful childhood. My parents were both hilarious. It's funny. They were, seriousness is the other side of comedy. And I think we know comedy comes out of seriousness. Comedy is tragedy and time. They couldn't have been more serious in the way they raised their kids, and were dedicated and ambitious, and education was everything. Everything to them. We had to study all the time, but they were also very funny. And we loved to watch, and I'm dating myself here, which is fine because I'm a cheap date. We watched the Ed Sullivan Show. For those millennials out there who don't know, think of where the Stephen Colbert Show is now. There was the Ed Sullivan Theater. There was a wonderful variety program called the Ed Sullivan Show, with wonderful comics legends like Joan Rivers, Alan King, Robert Klein. Toady Fields was a wonderful female comic. Stiller and Mirror. We grew up on that. Sunday night at 8:00, my parents, it was sacred time. We would sit down and watch the Ed Sullivan Show and see these fantastic comedians. Henny Youngman, George Carlin. Oh my God. And we laughed and laughed. We also watched the Carol Burnett Show. To hear my mother laugh, and she was such a serious person who'd had a difficult childhood, and my father as well, but to hear her laugh and feel free really registered on me. And I'm still trying to make her laugh in my own way, and my father too, even though they're no longer with us. But that was the dynamic that I grew up with. These comedians were sacred icons in our home. And the Carol Burnett Show, those great skits.
Yes.
So comedy was a value. And I went to medical school, and I told my mother I wanted to do comedy, and she was horrified. She thought that my supervisors would see this and think I wasn't a serious person. But on the other side, she said, if you're going to do it, be good. Be wildly successful, which I'm still working on. And we'll continue. It's an ongoing process. I'd like to be successful, preferably during my lifetime.
Wherever I hear your comedy, whether it's at Rob Chiaffi's Joke Zoom meetings where we work on comedy, or I hear through people like Helene and the New York people I'm tight with, how wonderful you are at your comedy craft. So I know that you're a pro, and if the way you deliver just in a little group on Zoom practicing, and you're not even on stage with the energy from the crowd, I can only imagine what you're like live.
It's such a thrill. It's such a thrill to go out there with solid jokes and make people laugh. It's just a wonderful thing, a wonderful conversation. When people enjoy your material and relate, it's so satisfying, and I just want to keep doing that and get better at it.
Yes. As a child growing up in your household, you had funny parents because they went through so much. They were even able to have laughter and need laughter just to survive and thrive. So then when you went to school and grade school and high school and college, was funny a part of you, or did you appreciated it? When did you start spewing out funny things you'd obtained?
I like that word spewing. It kind of sounds like The Exorcist. When I was in medical school, I went to the Albert Einstein College of Medicine and spa. No, it needs a spa. Let me tell you that. It definitely would benefit full service spa. But anyway, Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx was in my first year of medical school, which is all classroom work, hours of classroom work on such fascinating topics as the pancreatic pseudocyst. It's a lot of memorizing. I realized there came a moment where I said, if I'm going to survive this grind, I'm going to need a hobby or some other activity that, one, gets me off the campus where you're surrounded by your peers that are as stressed out and exhausted as you are, get me into Manhattan, and that's fun. And I found this ad on the back page of the Village Voice, and it said stand-up comedy class in Midtown. I signed up for it and got to hop on the subway and get down to Midtown and started doing stand-up, and I loved it. And I was doing jokes about, in medical, these were some of my early jokes. In medical school, we dissect cadavers. And we nicknamed our cadaver Ernest, so we could tell our folks we're working in dead earnest. And you get extra points. This is class called Gross Anatomy, and the name is very honest and accurate. It was gross, very gross.
Oh my God.
And you get extra credit in the course if you can figure out the cause of death. But we were lucky, we were in the Bronx, so that helped. It became down to find the bullet hole. So this kind of joke, these are the kind of jokes I was doing in this first comedy class run by a lady named Lisa Carmel, and I loved it. And then she said, write your jokes, try them out in class, but then go out at night and go to clubs. And we used to go to a club called Good Times on East 33rd and 3rd. And I remember people that I met there, and I started hanging out at the old Improv on West 44th Street. And this was in the 70s, and I met Joy Behar and Ray Romano and other wonderful people. And I remember meeting Dana Carvey, who couldn't have been nicer, and Mario Cantone, all these people that have gone on to do a lot of wonderful things. And Carol Leifer, I remember talking with her. She was a star at the Improv, and she was sitting at the bar. Her material was great. And Rich Scheidner. And I was there the night Ray Romano auditioned for The Tonight Show, and I was sitting next to the Jim McKay, or I don't, whoever was the booker. I was sitting next to him, and Ray did a great set, and he got The Tonight Show. So these were seminal evenings. And I met Silver Friedman, who had inherited the club from her in her divorce from Bud Friedman, this wonderful duo. And she was an extraordinary woman, very charismatic, and I auditioned and she passed me, and I got Wednesday night spots at 11 at the Improv. So these were wonderful evenings, where people were getting up and,
Wow. What year did you start comedy?
Like 1978.
Good Lord, Ellen.
I know. And I've still been doing the psychiatry. I finished medical school. I did a psychiatry residency and moved from Manhattan to Midtown, where I worked at Beth Israel Medical Center. I did a psychiatry residency, and then I transferred to Bellevue. NYU Langone. Bellevue has one of the biggest psych residency programs. It's one of the top programs in the country. I got into it, got accepted. And we had a lot of interesting evenings in the psych emergency room at Bellevue. And people would call from all over the country because they didn't know how to reach any psychiatrist from the Midwest or wherever they were living. And the word Bellevue is known all over the world as a psych hospital. And they would call us, and one guy would always call and ask questions like, what is happiness? I said, you're asking the wrong person. I've been up for 24 hours. I don't know what happiness is. Anyway, it was quite an experience, but I'd work all day and then come home, drink tons of coffee, and then go out, try to go to good times, do the open mics, go back to the improv hangout. So I'm on the slow path. And I was in a comedy contest in 1985 with Ray Romano. I made the semifinals. He won the contest. That was in Atlantic City at the Comedy Stop at the Trop. And I've been doing as much as I could. I got married, had kids, got divorced, still had the kids.
Totally.
Anyway, now here we are. My God, I'm sort of, I don't know. I'm still plugging away. My kids are grown and I'm still determined. I was on The View and I did my comedy on The View, and Joy Behar was the host then, and someone I knew from way back when.
Wow.
And the
what
judges
was that like?
Very exciting. I did my few minutes, and I was on the comedy show with Ken Jeong, who's a comic who was in The Hangover and had his own sitcom, Dr. Ken. The segment was called Hilarious Doctors. So very proud of that. And I'm still plugging away, and I have bookings coming up, and continue to write every day. And what else can I tell you? I talk about the frustrations of being a psychiatrist, but it's always at my expense, not at the patient's. I think it's important to say that. I say things like mental illness is very common. 1 in 100 people has schizophrenia, and the other 99 of us, we're not doing that well either. And there's another example from my act. I talk about the holiday time is the toughest. People suffer from all kinds of things. Depression is at its peak. On Christmas Eve alone, I saw 12 hypochondriacs, 11 obsessive compulsives, 10 pyromaniacs, 9 alcoholics, 8 anorexics, 5 crack whores. Stressful work. Patient came up to me. He said, Doc, I'm invisible. I said, I can't see you now. Just can't see you now. I get burnt out, You've heard of tennis elbow? I have shrink ear. Yeah. But it's still fascinating work, I gotta say. I got into it by reading Freud. What a genius. He discovered the subconscious. No one else was aware of it. And that joke will hit you like a ton of bricks later today. In Europe, they still honor this genius, Sigmund Freud. There's a Freud Airlines. The plane has 2 sections, guilt and shame. And the seats go all the way back to childhood. Yes, and the plane is shaped like a penis, and the other planes envy it. So.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know I was going to get comedy. Oh my gosh, that was wonderful.
And life is very challenging. We all know this. I'm divorced, and I like to celebrate my divorce every year by watching my wedding video backwards. I really recommend this. It's very therapeutic. First you see the bouquet flowing back into my hand. We take the rings off. We look at each other and say, do I? Yeah. As they say in Star Wars, may divorce be with you. I'm grateful there is such a thing as divorce. Very grateful. Because marriage was hard. I found it hard. Our marriage started with a courtship, and that ship was headed right to divorce, right to court, et cetera, et cetera. So everything that's frustrating or difficult is grist for the comedy mill.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. So you became funny, you went on stage in the late 70s. You're originally from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. And like in Brooklyn, did people, like before you went to college in Brooklyn, did people notice how funny you were before you were technically trained?
always tried to be funny, always was the class clown. Um, you know, I you know, I'm a serious person with a funny side, you know, and I think most comics are.
Yes, 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 that's right.
Yeah.
So in your comedy career, who are some of the people in comedy who have trained you or guided you that's really changed your career and kept you on the right path that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, there's quite a few. And Rob Chaffee, who has created Joke Zoom, kept us going during the pandemic on Zoom, writing 6 days a week. And he's an extraordinary man, very generous, very gifted, very funny.
Yes.
Also, I've studied with Tommy Koenig, who is a wonderful comic. I studied with Eddie Brill,
Wow.
Ross Bennett,
Yes.
and
Wow.
Joe DeVito. Very funny guy, great writer. I've taken his class 4 times. He's helped me a lot to sharpen punchlines. Trying to think who else. Taken a lot of classes over the years. Steve Rosenfield. I have his book here. He wrote a comedy book. I go back to these books, the Judy Carter book, Comedy Bible, very helpful.
Absolutely.
Go back to, right, go back to basics. Also the artist. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. She talks about writing 3 pages, just uncensored, writing 3 pages every morning. That helps you tune into yourself, get you grounded and centered, focus your mind. I'd also want to say I idolize Jerry Seinfeld, and he gives you, if you emulate him, does meditation twice a day for 20 minutes. I find that hard to do, but I keep trying, and that's why they call it a practice. I try to meditate in the morning, and I use videos on YouTube. I've tried TM. I can do the morning meditation for 20 minutes. By the afternoon, my mind is too active, but he's so disciplined. He inspires me. His discipline of writing every day for at least an hour, and the discipline, he even exercises. I got the book written by the trainer that he uses, Bob Phillips, and trying to do some of that,
Wow. It really, to sit here and talk to a veteran of comedy since 1976, did you say?
Yeah.
Do you know how humbling that is, just to be in your presence? I mean, I hope you get that, and that you're so humble, you come to these workshops on Zoom and you're saying punchlines, you're working on jokes, and you're willing to take input from schmoes like me. It's crazy. It blows my mind, your humility.
Is it humility or low self-esteem? Whatever it is, you're not a schmo. You're very funny and gifted and persistent, and your feedback on my comedy has been very helpful. And people often tell me I'm very humble and that I could afford to be less humble, because I am, and I'm not bragging, I am an accomplished person. I have an MD and a PhD. I did one of these combined programs. It took me 7 years. I got an MD and a PhD, and when you get both degrees, they subsidize your tuition because they want medical people who have science training to hopefully push the envelope forward in research over the years. And I've done a lot of research. But anyway, getting back to your point, I like being humble because then you're open to grow. If you're full of yourself and, you know, you can
Wow.
shut down. But I appreciate your I thank you for saying that. And I'd be grateful to get any feedback from you at any time. And that you're doing this is very generous and it's appreciated. And I've known a lot of comics over the years and I've seen them go from struggling, depressed, really struggling with no validation or career breaks that persist. I'm thinking of one, but I don't want to say her name, who has persisted and now she's really made it. But I remember sitting with her at a bus stop in Midtown and we just both come from a mic with our notebooks. And, you know, she talks about the struggle, how she's not happy in her day job. And I was in the same place and she persisted and then she won a contest and now she's doing great. And that inspires me because we know this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I thank you for showing the love today and giving and putting attention on me today.
Wow. I'm so thrilled. I have goosebumps over my body at the years that you've put into this and the humility you bring. They're very diametrically opposed in my book. If I'd been doing this since I don't have a lot of self-esteem, but you know, like if I did have self-esteem and I had been in comedy since 1976, I might have self-esteem about my comedy and not be as humble.
All right, but, you know, confidence. I have confidence, but I'm still open to growth, which is good.
Yes.
And then you go to work.
It's rare. It's rare. Most people in comedy with 10 years, they're not going to want to hang out with people, you know, that haven't done what they've done. And look at you.
I appreciate that. Well, one concession I have made to my having been in the business a long time is I no longer do bringer shows. I just decided I've done 1,000 and I'm not doing it anymore. Plus, everyone I've ever met has seen my act and won't come. So that's bravado of necessity. I'd have to pay homeless people to come in. It's air conditioned and I'll buy you 2 drinks. You don't.
Have you ever wanted to do that just because you're so sick and tired of the bringer scenario? Just like, okay, but I'm bringing the homeless.
I'm willing. It's come to that. And I would bring blow up dolls that I buy on Amazon, inflate them, stick them in seats and shell out for the cover charges and the 2 drinks, which I will drink myself afterwards. You'll have these blow up dolls sitting at the table. The homeless, I go through Penn Station and say, look, buddy, get off your cardboard box for a couple hours. We'll take a cab. I'll bring you to the Broadway Comedy Club. You'll get out of it's tough crowd, tough to do.
Oh my gosh. What's the craziest thing that's ever, I know your time is up already.
No.
I know a half hour, so, but I kind of want to end on 2 things. The craziest thing you've seen go down when you're doing comedy, and like, what do you want to say to people on your way out of this interview? What do you want to leave as your legacy, or what do you want to encourage those coming behind you?
Okay. Can we do the legacy question first?
Yes, we can.
And I love this question because legacy is very important to me. I would like to say, go to YouTube and look at my clips on my Ellen Orchid channel. And I also have some on my Ellen Mausner channel, which is my psychiatry name, my divorce name, or my slave name, as I like to call it, Mausner. And if, also I wrote a book. Do you mind if I hold it up?
Please do.
God bless you. Hold on.
Mausner?
Yeah. I also want to mention Joan Rivers as an inspiration. I loved her. I think she's the greatest. Now, I wrote this book. It's not a comedy book, but since you're giving me this opportunity, it's called Jacob Weinberg, Musical Pioneer. My grandfather, as it turns out, my father's father, was a Russian composer of great accomplishment who wrote
Wow.
magnificent things. And the music, regardless of the fact that I'm related to this dude, the music speaks for itself. So if you like great, beautiful classical music and klezmer music, which is very different than classical, on YouTube, a lot of videos of Jacob Weinberg. My maiden name is Weinberg. So I wrote this book about him, a tribute. It's called Jacob Weinberg, Musical Pioneer. It's available on Amazon. And as far as legacy, persistence, whatever you're dreaming of doing, persist. And that's why we're still here today doing this. And I hope to be famous in my lifetime, although I'm very big in France. No, not even. But but anyway, I would like to be famous, and I continue to write. I've written plays, I've written screenplays, sitcoms, spec scripts. I would like to find, here's a shout out. I'd like a literary agent. I have an acting agent, but I'd like a literary agent. If anybody knows anyone, I'm a good comedy writer. And I'd love to write for Colbert or SNL. Who doesn't, right? But I'm good on Comedy Wire. Also, if you want to read my one-liners, go to Comedy Wire. And then you asked, what's the craziest thing I've ever seen in a comedy club? Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt myself. I apologize to interrupt myself. I was on The Sopranos as an actress playing a psychiatrist, a speaking role that I prepared for. It's episode number 48, 4th season of The Sopranos, if you're a Sopranos buff. The episode's called Whoever Did This. This clip is also available on YouTube. If you put in my stage name, Ellen Orchid, and you type in The Sopranos, the clip will come up. And I got the job when I auditioned for the great David Chase, who created this landmark show, The Sopranos. At the audition, I wore my name badge from my job. And he said, what's that badge? And I said, I'm a psychiatrist in real life, but I'd rather play one on TV. And happily, I got the job. And I've studied acting for a long time. I have an MFA from the Actors Studio Drama School that was created by James Lipton. I have an MFA. I did that program for 3 years. I'm the only psychiatrist, MD, I know of who would leave her lucrative day job to do an MFA program with 20-year-olds. I don't know if it's crazy or not, but I did it and I finished, and it was very tough, I have to tell you.
Wow.
But
you got to meet, did you get to meet Mr. Lipton?
Many times, and I was in his home with his beautiful wife, Kedekai. He met my children. I sat in those tapings of Inside the Actors Studio with Robert De Niro, Bradley Cooper, George Clooney, Matt Damon. We met all these wonderful stars. It was thrilling.
Wow.
And I certainly learned a lot, and I love acting. And I'm in a Zoom show right now at the Chelsea Rep. I play it's called There's Something We Need to Talk About. And the last 2 performances are this Friday, August 6th, and Saturday, August 7th, if you want to see me. It's very cheap.
August 6th and 7th?
Yeah, Chelsea Rep, if you go online. It's a theater series. I love acting, and I hope to do more of it.
Wow, this is amazing. Holy Toledo, I'm typing it into the chat, so when people come on, they'll see different things. It's not full sentences, but they'll get the drift.
I studied Ellen Burstyn. I was in workshops with the great actress, Ellen Burstyn.
What?
I wrote a play called Adjustments, which I've been working on for 4 years. It's a full-length play about seniors in New York fighting to keep their sanity and adjust to all the changes around them. A pre-pandemic play. I sent it to Estelle Parsons, who is a legendary actress, and she works at the Actors Studio, and she said she's interested in doing it and directing it there.
Oh, that's fabulous.
So as we say, from your lips to God's ears, let's hope it happens.
Great. Oh my gosh. Well, wow. Ellen Orchid, you guys. Follow her. She's on Facebook as Ellen Orchid. She has 2 YouTubes, as I understand it. Ellen Mausner, Mausner, and Ellen Orchid, like the flower. Anything else? Anywhere else you want traffic?
As a psychiatrist, I'm enrolled on ZocDoc. You may have heard of a platform called ZocDoc, ZocDoc, where people see doctors. I'm there as a psychiatrist. So if you are more interested in my psychiatry prowess, you can see me as a patient, and I don't take insurance right now, but it's ridiculous. It's just quite a combination and I'm ready to retire from the psychiatry and do full on comedy work. But in any event, I hope this makes sense to all of you.
This is amazing. You have such a full life, you know, and I love the fact that you've channeled your energy in two opposite directions, because you spoke to the fact that comedians can be so serious yet so funny. And so you've been able to leverage those to the max. Very inspiring.
Well, thank you. And making people laugh is my greatest joy. And I hope to retire from psychiatry and spend the rest of my life succeeding in that. Let's hope.
Yes, from your mouth to God's ears.
And for you too, I hope all your dreams come true, Linda.
Thank you, Ellen. Well, thanks so much for coming on Comic Spot and letting people get to know you. I'll share it to my 10 pages, and I overshared to a ton of groups, like 70 groups. So now I'm banned from sharing to groups for 2 months. Can you believe it? I've been Zuckerberg.
That's not right.
Holy Toledo. But as soon as I'm un-Zuckerberged, I'll share it to groups.
I don't believe there's such a thing as oversharing.
I don't either. There's not, you know what is it with people and they're too much of anything? Like, you know, I can see it if it's too much sugar or too much alcohol, but you know, like, you know how people become psych patients by being told they're too sensitive or too easy or too difficult, or, you know, you can't be too much yourself.
That's wonderful.
And like, if you have a perceived weakness, use it for good. Like, I'm too sensitive. I get it. I'll say it about myself, but I try to use my sensitivity to be sensitive to others. So then how can you be too sensitive? Like,
that's where it's a strength. And I'm too sensitive also, but that's why I have the stomach to do the work that I've been doing.
thank you so much for doing that work. Being a psychiatrist is not easy. Oh my gosh. I would jump off of a bridge if I had to hear people's problems all day.
It's crossed my mind too, but I don't want to go out that way. I still want to lay a spot on the Colbert Show, so that's keeping me off the bridge. So no, I'm kidding.
Can you imagine the poor patient who finds out that after he got done unloading his problems, his shrink jumped off the bridge?
You know, it makes you giggle, but there have been suicides among physicians and psychiatrists, and I wish that more people would understand that you do need, if you do this serious work all day, you do need an outlet. And you don't want it to be booze or overeating or drugs, God forbid, or any kind of self-harm. But you need a healthy outlet like exercise. But doing comedy, boy, that was such a discovery for me. I'm so grateful that I found this. I remember when I was in my internship in psychiatry, I was hanging out at night at Good Times, and I foolishly mentioned this to the chairman of the psych department at Beth Israel, this very distinguished older guy. And he goes, "What would you do if a patient walked in and saw you on stage?" He was horrified. I said, "Well, I hope they would laugh. And I hope they wouldn't tell you, because I mean, I keep their secrets, they should keep mine. Hey, confidentiality cuts both ways." And then he goes, he actually said to me, "How do I know you're not crazy?" I said, "Well, if you don't know, and you're head of the department, that's a sad statement on your career, Buster." But I didn't say that. Anyway, we do have to be ourselves, and it does no one harm if I go out and tell a few jokes. So I don't want to feel guilty about it.
No, absolutely. Comedy's healing.
Yeah, and it heals us too.
Yes,
and hopefully others.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Ellen Orchid. You guys follow her, help her career, get to know her. You'll love her even more. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Love you. Thank you.
Love you back.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.